That, do I need to tell you? That is the opening cut from the new Taylor Swift album, Midnights, Before we even get to introducing the panel and stuff like that today, I just want to point out the composer and lyricist credits for this particular song. Zoe Kravitz, Mark Anthony Spears, Taylor Swift, Jack Antonoff, Sam Dew, and Jahan Akil Sweet. It's a pretty disparate group of people. I don't even know who some of them are, but in any case, this is the new Taylor Swift album. The reason that we would even be mentioning this, besides the fact that we feel some perverse, twisted need to mention this, is that Taylor Swift broke a record by, in fact, occupying all 10 of the top 10 spots on the Billboard charts with this album. The previous kind of close to record holder was Drake, who had 9 of the top 10 spots at one point. He's no longer the record holder. Suck it, Drake. I just had to say that because I'm bitter about Drake for reasons that would take too long to explain. And now she's announced her first tour in 5 years. Our senior producer, Lily Tyson, is apparently taking all of next year off just so she can go on to all the tour dates. And so that's the kind of phenomenon we're dealing with right now. And speaking of phenomena, on our show today, Teresa Kramer is the freelance writer and editor and the co-founder of Quiet Corner Communications. Sam Hadelman works in music public relations and hosts The Sam Hadelman Show at Radio Free Brooklyn. Irene Papoulis teaches writing at Trinity College. And I want to say, going into this part of our conversation, later we're going to talk about Don't Worry, Darling, a movie which had the most storied on-set, off-set, pre-release drama since I don't know, I sit in the promo since The Misfits, but something like that anyway. And in the midst of all that, we're all going to talk about oversharing, the problem of oversharing driven by social media. But Sam, in an odd gender reversal, you and I are the people most excited to talk about Taylor Swift, the two women on the show. Sort of an eerie, stony silence coming from them so far. But Sam, kind of get us going on this. I mean, there's sort of Taylor Swift, the phenomenon, where the fact that she has declared a tour, is creating all kinds of weird ripple effects. And there's the stuff on the Billboard charts. But probably maybe worth mentioning, this is, in fact, a collection of music as well.
Yeah, there's an album somewhere in here. It's interesting to see that Taylor Swift is utilizing the full force of the music industry. She has everything on her side, and it's just kind of seeing how far the machine can go. She sold 1.5 million first week, 1 million pure sales, which is absolutely bonkers. Thank you for not highlighting that I'm secretly a Swiftie. I try to keep that to myself. I don't want to overshare that. I actually I went to my college's alumni weekend over last weekend, and a bunch of women came up to me, and they weren't like, "Hey, how are you? What are you up to?" They're like, "Midnights. Let me hear your thoughts." So I think I've become an authority. I actually was kind of surprised. I kind of thought that Taylor was going to keep doing the Stevie Nicks, hot apple cider flannel music she's been doing the past couple of years that I've really enjoyed. And it ended up being a lot more dancey and electronic. And it's funny that you bring up the credits, because that first song, I heard the drums and I was like, that's not Jack Antonoff. There's a little flavor in those drums. And one of the producers is Soundwave, who has been Kendrick Lamar's producer for about 10 years. So I thought it was cool to see her try to experiment, make more, like I said, house-inspired music, because that's kind of the trend right now with Drake, The Weeknd, Beyonce, everybody and their mother trying to make dancey music. Some things were a little bit more of a miss for me, but overall, I think that it's worth the hype.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that and maybe this is something where the other panelists would be interested in talking about this too. I feel like if you didn't tell me who this album was by, and I didn't recognize the voice, although I don't really know how that would be possible, but let's pretend it were possible. Or if, as I said in our emails, if Phoebe Bridgers or Lucy Dacus or somebody like that released that album, I think a lot of people like me, who do not think of ourselves as Swifties, would go, "Wow, that's a pretty cool album." And there's actually one song, it's called Labyrinth. Actually, we can just play it. We'll play the beginning of Labyrinth. If you know who Phoebe Bridgers is, think about what Taylor Swift's voice sounds like here and ask yourself who she's trying to sound like.
Breathe in, breathe through, breathe deep, breathe.
Okay, now I'm getting worried. Maybe that actually is Phoebe Bridgers. Maybe she's like featured on the track, and I don't even know that. It sounds so much like her. But I mean, Teresa, there is a way in which, like, I don't really see myself as somebody who would spend all day listening to a Taylor Swift album. Although I really probably could just listen to. I mean, I listened to this like four or five times. I mean, the whole album, like maybe 4 times today. It's like there's how we see each other and how we see ourselves, and then what we actually like. And sometimes our prejudices don't even really fit that much with our tastes.
That's interesting. I was thinking about that a little bit because, as Sam put it, there was a Stevie Nicks cider flannel phase that she went through that I feel like could probably get me into being a Swiftie.
That's your lifestyle. That is. I mean, literally, that plus dogs is your lifestyle.
Yes, I think my Twitter profile actually says that my style is, my personal like fashion style is Stevie Nicks on a hike. So that I could really get into. I think maybe I'll go back and revisit that after this. But like trying to, we're talking about this. So I did bring up the album, listen to a few songs before we started, and like one house dance music is not for me. Taylor Swift's voice kind of isn't for me. I like something a little bit more gravelly with a little bit more heft to it, and that kind of light ethereal voice that she has doesn't really do it for me. This to me sort of sounds like something I would play like instead of classical music or something in the background, just like to not distract me too much while I was trying to get something done. But like, I'm the worst possible millennial woman you could have asked to be on the show. I have no particular feelings one way or the other about Taylor Swift.
Well, maybe that makes you the best possible millennial woman.
Maybe.
But I will say that before we get to Irene, one thing I circulated was there are a couple of different stories out right now, but one in Rolling Stone in particular, about Taylor Swift announcing her tour and freaking out a generation of millennial and Gen Z women who have weddings planned and who feel like they almost can't have that they might not even want to go to their own wedding if it's on the same date as a Taylor Swift, concert somewhere near them. And they're pretty sure nobody else will go to their wedding either, or it'll just be guys or something, which is a weird wedding.
I also freaked out, if that's anything to note. You
freaked out?
Yeah, I mean the lineup's crazy.
Yeah,
I would fully.
But you're not getting married or anything, right?
No wedding conflicts. It's a real conflict with me sitting on my couch. But yeah, I also freaked out.
So Irene, I don't know. I don't know where to go with you on this exactly. Yeah. But okay, which is unusual. I can just go wherever you want.
Yeah, I can go somewhere. Yeah, I mean, it makes me think about. I think it's so interesting, the whole difference between what you actually like and what you feel that your image would lead you to have to like or dislike. And so I think once you have, like the people who are comfortable liking Taylor Swift are one kind of people. And then I was thinking like, part of my image that I like to have is that I'll listen to anything, I'll like anything, no matter whether it fits my demographic or expectations or not. So I can like it. I just listened to the album for the first time today and I really liked it. So, But I don't know. I think, is that why, you can't have your wedding because everybody likes her and you have to get caught up in that tsunami? Or is it because you really like her and you really want to go? Maybe it's the second one. Maybe there is something about her that's just so universally appealing. But I think there's other people that are probably, very appealing potentially. But I think it's interesting how everybody has to jump on the same bandwagon.
Well, I don't know if it's the same band. First of all, let me just say that our senior producer, Lily Tyson, if this had happened this year instead of next year, she probably would have skipped her own wedding. And poor Zane would have been just standing there going, I don't know. She said she was coming, and then she just texted me something about a Taylor Swift concert. I guess she's not here. But, and I don't know that it's a bandwagon so much as... Yeah, I mean, Teresa, just to circle back to you for a second, yes, you are like, one of the very rare millennial women, who doesn't resonate here. But there's I don't know if that it's a bandwagon so much as she's really good, and somehow or other she has become the voice of at least a certain segment of maybe kind of two overlapping generations. Not so much a bandwagon, but maybe this is just who you listen to.
I think I agree with that because there are some really sort of very surprising people, like podcasters I listen to who are like men who are my age, who really, and I'm a millennial, but I'm a 41-year-old millennial. So I'm also like an exennial, like depending on who you ask, I may be Gen X, who knows? But anyway, so, but I think Taylor Swift she reinvents herself so much that, like, as we were kind of talking about before, somewhere in there's going to be an album for you, right? Like one of them is going to resonate with you. She creates so much stuff and it's so different, whether you were like in the early country days Taylor fan, or you want dance music or straight pop music or something a little more folky. She's created something for you. And so she brings together in an almost Dolly Parton-like way this huge swath of people.
That's a really interesting analogy, the Dolly Parton thing. That's really good.
I mean, I think Dolly I am sure Dolly does love Taylor. Somewhere Dolly is out there like trying to pass on the baton.
I mean, and Sam,
Therese, can I just ask Teresa a quick question?
Please do.
It sounds like you've paid a lot of attention to Taylor, even with not liking her. Is that true?
You can't not.
Is there a choice?
Yeah, there's no choice. Yeah, like I don't think I think I have enough friends and sort of media friends, for lack of a better word, people I listen to and engage with through podcasts or whatever on a regular basis, who love Taylor Swift. Like this morning, I was talking to Rebecca Castellani because we work together, and you all know her from The Nose. She knows she loves Taylor. She probably should be here talking about this, but so yeah, she's inescapable.
I guarantee you she's been on our show talking about Taylor Swift at least once, and maybe more times. She might have been even on the one where Sam feels that he was outed. Although one thing I want to say to you, Sam, about that is that the real outing that day was Gorman Bechard. Gorman Bechard, the crankiest man in Connecticut, a title which he would not dispute, and he loves Taylor Swift. I still haven't gotten over that like a year or two later, that Gorman Bechard loves Taylor Swift. I just, and Gorman is like more my age or something. Maybe he's a little bit younger, but so Sam, maybe
you love her too, right, Colin?
No, I don't. I really like this album. I'm having an identity problem. I'm having a really cynical identity problem. Like, I don't think of myself as somebody who would listen to a Taylor Swift album all day. But I actually usually, when I hear her, like, and certain songs, like, Shake It Off was undeniably just sort of a great hit, I mean, what are you going to do about that? But Sam, and I think maybe that's a good segue into saying one more thing about all this, which is, she really is. I'm a big believer in craft, and her songwriting craft, you can't argue against that. There's a way in which she makes songwriting sound incredibly easy. Just some of the tonal choices, just some of the ways that she might slide from one musical idea to another, or even from a choice from one note to another. It often sounds incredibly easy, but it's clearly the work of someone who takes the songwriting craft and then the production of that song very, very seriously.
Oh my God, that was like exactly the thing I was going to bring up. Was the development of her pen on this was just unbelievable. Anti-Hero, some of her best songwriting ever. Mm-hmm. She's so quick and witty with the pop structures, never does too much, easily illustrative, always is very honest and transparent. And I think that's really what people gravitate towards, is that although she's the biggest pop star on planet Earth, it kind of sounds like, I don't know, like a fun sleepover, like someone just like telling you all the things that happen in their day and their drama, and she leaves little like nuggets of information about her public life in there. And I think that's really why she's amassed this huge fan base. Also, there's just like a drought of American stars in music today. Like, if you think about it, Drake doesn't really care about charting anymore. Young Thug's in prison. There's like a million, like there's like a really interesting Billboard article about
how Pre-take.
Yeah. Sorry. There's a really interesting Billboard article about how hard it's been to develop pop acts in the last couple of years because nothing's been able to stick. There's this massive opening, and Taylor Swift has just filled it with great music.
Yeah, and I think this is a good way. We can segue into the second half of this segment, which is about an article that Irene directed us to. Because, I mean, if there's a knock against Taylor Swift, it's contained a little bit in what Sam just said, which is that she is kind of an oversharer, or there's a way in which you can get a little tired of hearing her score settling and her, sort of iterations of her various relationships, some of them pretty identifiable, some of them not. But I mean, if there's the thing that I wouldn't like about Taylor Swift is, and a difference between her and a Lucy Dacus or a Phoebe Bridgers would be, okay, get a few other interests. Let's write some songs about some stuff that just aren't about, guys that you're mad at or people you miss or whatever. And so that leads us to, Irene, the article you sent us to. It's called, it's in The Atlantic. It's called The Decline of Etiquette and the Rise of Boundaries. Michael Waters is writing about this, saying a disconcerting question today seems to be on many people's mind. Do we know too much about those around us? He doesn't specifically mention Taylor Swift. Advice columnists are fielding questions about how to protect against overshares, as well as what constitutes TMI, too much information, et cetera, et cetera. And so, first of all, Irene, explain why this article intrigued you and why you directed us to it.
All right. Well, for one thing, I teach personal essay writing. And so sometimes I feel very, so that issue comes up a lot. And I think sometimes I think that oversharing is a way to hide. So people can use oversharing to just kind of like not say what's really going on because they're blurting out all these like super personal things. And either people like, in a way, there's two kinds of people in the world: the people who love oversharing and want to hear everything that everyone else has to say, and then the people who say, oh my gosh, TMI. I think it's interesting to think that there's a shift in the culture that this article points to between, it used to be, you had to be more decorous and etiquette said you just don't bring things up, period. Then we just moved so far away from it. And now maybe we're moving back to people having some boundaries, which I think is probably a good thing. But at the same time, I love it. I love to hear about what's really going on for people deep inside themselves and encouraging them to articulate it. So I don't necessarily have an answer as much as I think it's an interesting thing to think about why you do overshare. Why, if something happened, I feel that sometimes, if something happens, sometimes I have some kind of a feeling or an emotion. I think, oh, I want to write a tweet about that, and then I say, why do I want to write a tweet about that? Who is the audience? There's some kind of desire for some kind of recognition by, I'm going to tell you what I'm really going through. But on the other hand, I don't want anyone to know anything. So I usually don't do it. And, but why don't I? Why is oversharing so bad? Like sometimes I can't stand it when people say TMI. Like sometimes even in my classes, we read a personal essay, someone says that. And I think, well, that can feel like a real insult to someone who's trying to really share something in a way that means something and goes toward intimacy with readers or goes towards connection with other people. Don't we all want to connect with other people? And so isn't it good to overshare? But maybe you should it depends who it is. And if you do it on social media, it might be people that you can't, you can't control in any way. And I just think it's an interesting issue.
That was a truly Papulian soliloquy. And by the way, one of our premium gifts in the next WNPR pledge drive will be the unpublished tweets of Irene Papoulis. It's 191 pages to find out all this stuff that she really decided not to share with you. But yeah, I don't know. First of all, Teresa, it's so easy to blame social media for everything. Mm-hmm. And one reason to do that is because social media is to blame for almost everything. But mm-hmm. I think about, there's a great scene in 30 Rock where Liz Lemon is on a plane and she's taken a drug that Jack Donaghy has given her for air sickness or fear or something. But instead it causes her to hallucinate that the woman sitting next to her, in the seat next to her, is Oprah. And they actually have Oprah there, the real Oprah, playing that hallucination. And so Liz Lemon just starts saying, I kissed a girl at camp and then she drowned. I think I ate my twin in the womb. And she's like saying all this stuff. And then the Oprah tries to calm her down. And then Liz Lemon, almost like she's going to vomit, she goes, wait, I think I feel some more stuff coming. And that's not social media. That's a culture where we went from the extreme that's described in this article, this kind of 50s Eisenhower era repression, to like, it's not only good if you share, but if you don't have anything to share, maybe you're not even all that interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things the article also says is that there's kind of a time and a place for everything. Like what you share with your best friend is not the same as what you share with all of Twitter, right? Most of the time. And I think to some degree, I think what can be a little bit annoying sometimes about oversharing on social media is that it feels like attention seeking in a way that when you're
But why is that bad?
I don't know. I mean, I suppose it depends on who you are. Like, I have a very New England sensibility in which I think everyone should mind their own business about everything. And so, like, for me, I'm kind of like, I'm sure there are some people who don't have a support system, but it's like, why are you seeking attention from people you've never met, who you never will meet, and who are probably trolls? So that's why I tend to think it's bad on social media. But in the real world, I think we have a much better sense. Hopefully most of us have a much better sense of, what you say at work, what you don't say at work, what you say to someone you just met versus someone you've known your whole life. It's, I think we've lost that sense a little bit because we're so used to speaking to the void. And, you mentioned earlier, Colin, that my whole thing is basically, Stevie Nicks plus dogs, which is like, if you went to any one of my social media feeds right now, it would literally just be pictures of my dogs. Like, I share stuff all the time, but none of it's truly personal, right? Like, and I don't think, and I tend to not follow people who want to share personal stuff all the time. I'm like, no, can we just talk about like a true crime podcast and our cats? Because I don't want to know what people I don't know are dealing with right now. It's too much. There's only so much any one of us can take on at any time from the people in our lives. And that's one of the things this article addresses, right? Like, when it's okay to say, hey, listen, I can't take on your burden right now. And in a way, social media feels like people putting their burden on you constantly, whether you asked for it or not.
But they don't want you, all they want is for you to hear them and say, oh, wow. As opposed to, I don't know if they're necessarily putting their burden on you.
Well, so I want to hear from Sam. First of all, although I don't think of Sam as an oversharer, although I will say I think this is as long as Sam has ever been gone on this show without mentioning one of his parents. So Sam, I don't know. What's your reaction to the conversation you're hearing here?
I'm a crazy undershare. I don't want anyone to know anything about me ever. Which is crazy because I'm addicted to Twitter. But my friends like make fun of me because I like only tweet about music and sports and movies. Like, I don't need anyone to know anything about my personal life. What I will bring up is that alumni weekend I was talking about. Everybody was coming up to me and they were like, Sam, you've done really well for yourself with your and they didn't know what job I did because of how much I undershare. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, is this healthy? Like, I guess this week, this is like a good conversation because I've been thinking personally a lot about what the difference is between boundaries and walls. Like, have I cocooned myself in comfort, or am I protecting myself from people knowing too much about me and, the possible reaction they have to that, I guess, not to get too, deep. I guess this is NPR. Yeah,
that's actually our marketing slogan right now. Is I guess this is NPR.
But yeah, I just I also think that there's something that you said about like how men are taught to handle boundaries, and that like we're not really supposed to talk about it or have them. We're just always supposed to be like stoic and not say anything and internalize everything and create this bomb of trauma. I've seen that like in a lot of men. So I think that like setting boundaries is smart. Just make sure they don't turn into walls.
That's a really nice analogy, I think, actually, or image or something. All right, we should probably stop there before I overshare. And I don't want to, because Chris Pine will get a hold of information about me and use it against me somehow to manipulate me. But that's what we're talking about in the next segment. So let's take a break. Let's go out with a little bit more Tay-Tay.
Told you none of it was accidental, and the first night that you saw me, nothing was gonna stop me. I laid the groundwork and then saw a wide smirk on your face. You knew the entire time
That's Ray Charles singing the opening song of the movie Don't Worry, Darling. Before we go into the movie, I just want to say, because I can't let this pass. One reason I was laughing when Teresa was talking in the previous segment about the oversharing thing is it brought back a memory of my son, who is the most anti-sharing person probably in the universe. But even when he was in kindergarten, there was this thing where you'd be the student of the week or the student of the month or something. Anyway, when you were supposed to bring all kinds of pictures of your family and your pets and your bedroom at home or something in, and they put it up on the bulletin board so everybody else in the class can kind of get to know you. And my son told the teacher that he's in kindergarten. He said, I'm not doing that. It's none of their business. Which I just love so much. All right. So with us, Teresa Kramer, Sam Hadelman, Irene Papoulis. We all watched Don't Worry, Darling. This is the second movie directed by Olivia Wilde, Booksmart being the first one. Same scriptwriter for both movies. The difference is, of course, that Don't Worry, Darling was accompanied pre-release by all kinds of stories, and Shia LaBeouf being fired off the thing, and Harry Styles, who's Olivia Wilde's boyfriend, being brought in, and then Harry Styles might have spat on Chris Pine. And then there were texts and emails coming out, and Florence Pugh isn't happy, and Olivia Wilde is calling her Miss Flo, which is actually what I call one of the dogs in our neighborhood. And I mean, everybody really felt included, is what I'm saying. But anyway, the movie is about Alice and Jack. They're a couple living in kind of what looks like Palm Springs in the 1950s. It's kind of a planned community. It's basically created by something called the Victory Project. To house workers and families in these highly stylized and beautiful 50s. I mean, the production design on this movie is really, really great. Whether the rest of the movie is great or not is something we are about to debate. But I think, Irene, we should begin with you, because although this movie is getting some negative press and it is being found wanting by some people anyway, you had some pretty interesting reasons for liking it. So maybe let's start there.
Okay. Well, first of all, I saw Olivia Wilde in 1984 on Broadway a few years ago, and I just so blown away by her performance that I have a very, very, I came to the movie with a very positive mindset. Plus, I know that her uncle was Alex Coburn, whose writing I really used to like. But so I was like, okay, this is somebody that really knows what she's doing. And I think it's an interesting, I mean, it's kind of gorgeous to watch. And at first there's kind of an element of, wait a minute, do we need another movie about 50s nuclear family? And I love how it was so much more than that. It sort of went into this, to me, it had this emotional, ultimately taken as a whole, has a very interesting emotional resonance in its exploration of an element of love relationships that I found fascinating.
So this movie, we should say, is sort of the acting debut or the major acting debut of Harry Styles. By the way, that's his real name, which I think is really funny. But anyway, he will actually be in another movie this year that's called The Last Policeman, or The Big Policeman, or The Purple Policeman. He's some kind of policeman. I've forgotten the name of the movie. But let's hear a little bit from the movie. Here's Florence Pugh as Alice, Harry Styles as Jack again. They are a married couple. Jack works for this somewhat mysterious Victory Project, which is kind of overseeing everything where they live.
What are you doing at the Victory Project?
You know what I do, Alice? I'm a technical engineer.
Mm-hmm. I know. But what are they doing? Please. What's actually happening?
Don't ask me that.
The development of progressive materials?
You know
what
we
does that
can't
even
talk
mean?
about this.
What does that even mean?
You know we can't
Come
talk
on,
about
what
this.
does it mean? What does it even mean? Do you know? Do you even know what Frank is actually doing?
It's classified. We're not even allowed to discuss our jobs with other departments. You know that.
What if Margaret was right?
Stop it, Alice.
What if this place is dangerous? What if...
Stop it! I'm part of something important, Alice. This mission, what Frank's doing, it matters.
I know that, baby, but you're not listening.
No, not everyone gets this opportunity. And if you keep talking like this, you're going to put it all at risk.
You're worried about a demotion? That's what you're worried about?
Our life. Alice, our life together. This. We could lose this.
All right, so several corrections coming from the producer's booth. It's My Policeman is the name of the new Harry Styles movie that's coming next. Also, Shia LaBeouf claims he quit rather than that he was fired. So with all of that in mind, And so I don't know. Well, first of all, Teresa, when I listened to this clip, one of the things that happened to me watching this movie, and this is like an hour into the movie, this clip, and it's, as our producer McPants points out, it's the first time the real premise of the movie is kind of stated, and the tension of the movie maybe is sort of articulated for the first time. But I had this little thing. I turned to my partner and said, has he had a British accent all the way through the movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or did he just start having a British accent? Am I losing my mind right now? But Teresa, I'm just interested to know your thoughts overall.
I think I agree with Irene that this is sort of a beautiful movie to watch, at least for most of it. And I was thinking actually sort of that's this subset of millennial women who love mid-century modern with every core of their fiber and will just love to watch this movie for that, because the architecture is stunning and the design is great and it's really beautiful. And there was this disconnect for me wherein I was like, there's something about these people that don't ring true to me as 50s, right? And I don't know if it was because like the Alice character was just a little bit ahead of her time. You know, they're talking about how they're not ready to have babies and blah, blah, blah at a time when they probably wouldn't have had a choice. And like some of the banter between her and the bunny character felt very like of our moment to me, which sort of makes sense later in the movie, though I'm still not sure that was, sorry, the dogs have chosen this moment.
No, this is so perfect. Yeah. You've got to admit, it is so perfect.
And I will say, I have a foster dog who's actually in the office with me, and he's been snoring through this entire episode. So if you've heard
I saw that dog. That dog needs to lay off the candy bars for a while.
It's my job to get him in shape. Yeah. He's got doggy sleep apnea. But yeah, I didn't love this movie. I got to the end of it. I thought there was a lot of like internal stuff that didn't make a ton of sense to me, that I was like, I'm not sure if I took the time to try and parse all this out, that the internal logic here makes sense. And I can't get too much into that without spoiling the movie. But I'm also not sure that it's just not me and I don't understand it because they did a bad job of explaining it. I'm not sure, but I'll let someone else talk so you don't have to keep listening to my dog.
Woof, woof, woof. All right. So, well, Sam, one possibility that I was struggling with here, and it's come up in some other discussions of this movie too, is, well, some of the stuff that Teresa brings up is answerable if we say, well, it's kind of ultimately a satire, but also kind of a thriller and a Matrix-y kind of thing, and it's like a lot of different things, but it's also a satire. And you have people like Nick Kroll, who's really, really funny usually in this movie. You can sort of see Nick Kroll's head kind of bobbing around like, could I be funny right here? Is this like a place where I could be funny? Because, but I can't really figure out whether this movie is supposed to be funny.
It's not. And it wasn't.
Thank you.
It wasn't thrilling. It was bad. Like, it was a bad movie. Like, it wasn't good. I don't think you've ever heard me say something like that on the show. It was boring, lazy, disjointed, trying to make points that, like, you don't just get brownie points for asking the question. I think that was my thing. And I'm not trying to be I don't think I'm an arbiter of feminism, but this felt like the white feminism Super Bowl. Like, it was crazy. And then, of course, she falls into the trope of having the black mystic figure show her the way. And I was just like, are you kidding? This is like, and the movie is supposed to be about like female pleasure at some point, like the sex scenes. I think I read that somewhere. Harry Styles and Florence Pugh had the sexual tension of a pair of siblings. It was unbelievably bad. Like, but I do think, like, towards the end, as the plot started to unravel, I enjoyed myself a little more. But the characters were so flat, and I didn't really enjoy it that much.
That's coming through. All right. So we're going to play one more clip here. I mentioned Chris Pine before. He is the somewhat enigmatic, kind of cultish leader of the Victory Project. Olivia Wilde, who, by the way, has said that this movie is somewhat about female pleasure, She's said it's about a lot of different things. She's in the movie. I don't know if we pointed that out. She plays Bunny in the movie. But she said the Chris Pine character was based on Jordan Peterson, which I really don't see at all, really. But anyway, here's Chris Pine as Frank, the enigmatic cultish leader, and Nick Kroll as Dean, one of his minions.
Dean, what is the enemy of progress?
Chaos.
Yes. Oof. Nasty word. Chaos. Merciless foe at chaos. Energy unfocused, innovation hindered, hope strangled, greatness disguised. I see greatness in each one of you. I know exactly who you are. What are we doing?
Changing the world.
What are we doing?
Changing the world.
That's right. I look around, I see another reason why I'm here. Once unfamiliar faces, strangers, one and all, now one brave family. All of you wives, we men, we ask a lot. We ask for strength, a shoulder to cry on, food at home, a house cleaned, and discretion above all else. And that's very difficult.
Right. So it's really more like if Jordan Peterson were captain of the Starship Enterprise, which, by the way, Saturday Night Live, run with that idea. But Irene, just to sort of get back to something that I think both Sam and Teresa kind of edged at, there's a way in which this seems to be a little bit about a problem that maybe I'm being an insensitive man when I say this, but this seems like kind of a 50s problem in a way. It's kind of like this is the problem about having no choices. And I'm wondering why you make that movie now.
I guess I would answer if I'm going to support the movie. First of all, I don't think it was a satire, but I think it was funny, sort of deliberately funny in some ways without being a satire. I would just call it that. Why make it now? And that's why I think that to me, what it's trying to, and I agree that it's not, I didn't find it to be perfect, but I thought it was a very interesting idea in the sense of trying to explore the idea of what it means to, like what love is. What does it mean to love someone? And what do you really want when you love somebody? And I actually thought it would have been more interesting if they didn't just stick with the traditional heterosexual paradigm in terms of the roles of the people. But I think that issue, that question about love, I don't want to give any spoilers, but is still fresh. I mean, it's still a question. It's still, it still floats around. In people's relationships, and so I thought that's why to make it now. They created this whole 50s world, and that was an issue there, but it was a slightly different twist on it. It was a different twist. They were trying to make a twist on that usual story. Yeah.
I think the reason you make this now, right, is because of this idea of like make America great again, because there's an entire group of men who would love to see this, right? This is about this idealized version of America that never existed. And a whole bunch of men who can't please their wives and therefore have to resort to great lengths to have a halfway decent marriage. And it's hard to talk about that. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to talk about again without spoiling the movie for everybody. Yeah. But I think that's really at the heart of this, is because we're at a time when there are so many people who would like to roll the progress we've made back to a time like this. And including Jordan Peterson, like that actually makes sense to me. I hadn't heard that before, but that actually does make a lot of sense to me now that you've said it, Colin.
That was kind of like the silver lining for me. It was that I thought that was the most interesting part, is that this was a physical embodiment of the rhetoric that conservative social media hosts tout. And also, if you want to see Jordan Peterson cry, please look up the clip of this interview he did where he's like, yeah, they made a movie about me and they said my fans are incels. Oh, it's so funny. But I thought that she nailed that. I thought Chris Pine like did as good of a job as he could have with the script. And I thought that like, you know, once Harry Styles, you know, got midway to the end of the movie, like showing how this whole thing got set up, I thought that it was sound. It was a sound exploration of patriarchal violence and patriarchal systems. I just didn't understand why the only focus was on this white woman.
All right, we have to stop there. I do want to say as we stop, I do feel like it's almost inarguable that Florence Pugh, and I've seen, I think, almost everything she's done except Midsummer, but I saw Little Drummer Girl, which nobody saw. I think, you know, she's really interesting to watch no matter what she's doing. She can be in a bad movie, and you're like, wow, well, at least I can look at her and watch what she's doing. I think she's really unusual.
That was me last night.
Yeah. Harry Styles, maybe not so much, but it's his first movie. Give him some time.
He was in Dunkirk. He was in Dunkirk.
That's right. He's in Dunkirk. His first big starring role. All right. We have to stop there. By the way, I think Jordan Peterson almost cried in his one appearance on this show. It's certainly the only thing I've ever done that Reddit has ever been interested in. All right. Let's take a little break. We'll come back. We'll make some recommendations.
Life could be a dream if I could take you up in paradise up above. If you would tell me I'm the only one that you love, life could be a dream. Sweetheart, hello, hello again. Shaboom, and open we'll meet again. Boom, ding dong, ding dong, a lang, a lang, a lang. Oh, whoa, whoa, bip, a bip, a dip. Oh, life could be a dream. If only all my precious plans would come true. If you would let me spend my whole life loving you.
We are back. We are fortunate to have, as usual, Kat Pastor as our technical producer, and Jonathan McPants is, as usual, our episode producer for The Nose. Time to make some recommendations. Sam Hadelman, why don't you get us going?
I have two quick recommendations today. The first one is a new Hulu series, or newish. It's called Reboot. It's about kind of the TV system and them this network rebooting a show from 2005, and I don't know, it's warm, it's fuzzy. Johnny Knoxville's in it. It kind of feels like the Abbott Elementary of this year. Since Abbott Elementary season 2 has been a little disappointing, definitely check out Reboot.
Keegan-Michael Key, I think, is who's carrying that series. But.
Yes. And the second one, Takeoff, one of the members of the Migos, was killed this week. And he was kind of like the George Harrison, Ginger Baker, John Paul Jones of kind of like the Migos, who were one of the bigger rap groups of the last decade. So I would just endorse, maybe checking them out. I think that, I don't know, if you've tapped out of music for the last couple of years, I would recommend Blue Cheese by 2 Chainz and Migos to give that a listen.
All right. And now, Teresa Kramer, what are you going to recommend to us?
I'm going to recommend a show called Somebody Somewhere from HBO. Season 1's out. I believe there's season 2 on the way. It stars Bridget Everett, the comedian, and Jeff Hiller, Murray Hill, a bunch of other people who I wouldn't even recognize really, but who have given really great, heartwarming, hilarious performances in this kind of weird, quirky little show about a woman who's returned to her hometown. I don't want to give too much away, and I just, there's not much else like it that I've seen in a long time, and I really think it's worth watching.
Yeah, we did do an episode of The Nose about it back around the time that it came out, and I think we all really liked it a lot. And Jeff Hiller kind of steals almost everything that he's ever in, but he's really, really good in this. All right, so great recommendation. Irene Papoulis, how about you?
I have actually, Colin, you anticipated this because I thought I was the only one who had watched A Little Drummer Girl, the series, and it's with Florence Pugh, and she has, the same sexy, lush, or different kind of sexy lusciousness that she brings to apparently every role that she's in. And it's just a really fun sort of John le Carré story, and it's got her and Alexander Skarsgård. And it's really, now it's on HBO, but really worth watching.
Oh, did it move to? I was looking for it the other day, and it seemed like you had to pay for it somewhere. But it's good to know.
Yeah.
All right. So those are everybody's recommendations. Let me just say a couple of quick things. First, my recommendation is a movie called Emily the Criminal. It stars Aubrey Plaza. I think Aubrey Plaza might be, about to become a really big star. People got to know her in Parks and Rec. She's done a lot of other stuff since then. There's a kind of weird, powerful stillness about her a lot of the time. And so it's an indie film. It's sort of about small-time criminals and people down on their luck. And I found it pretty gripping. I mean, the ending was a little bit disappointing, but I found it kind of gripping. I'm also going to tell you that we're doing kind of an unusual thing next week, and something that is kind of cruel to our panelists, which is I've been talking about this for a long time, that we have to do something not about Taylor Swift, but about Taylor Sheridan, the creator of Yellowstone and tons of movies and television shows, and who really there is kind of a Taylor Sheridan verse now. So our poor panelists are trying to watch Yellowstone, 1883, Hell or High Water, the mayor of whatever it is that Jeremy Renner is the mayor. I don't know. There's just a lot to swallow. But we're going to try to tackle it, as much of it as we can next week. It's Rebecca Castellani, formerly mentioned, it's Mayor of Kingstown, Rebecca Castellani, Jim Chapdelaine, Tanisha Dugan. They are very brave, and they're going to try to tackle all this stuff. So the last thing that I need to say today is that it's sort of a strange day here in the studio. This is a studio that I've shared now for quite a few years. I mean, we're not usually together in the studio, particularly in the era of COVID, with Lucy Nalpathanchel, who's been the host of Where We Live for now many years, and today was her last day. So we will miss the particular tone and vibe that she brought to Where We Live. We don't know who's going to be taking over, although I think Walter Randolph-Smith and Frankie Graziano are going to pinch hit for a while we figure all this out. So we wanted to say goodbye to Lucy. And do we have enough music so that we can go to the music right now, Kat? All right, let's go to the music. And bye-bye, Lucy.
'Cause I love Lucy. I love Lucy, and as I mentioned, Lucy loves me. Can't help it, I know I love Lucy, and there's a reason why I love Lucy. Can't help it, I know I love Lucy, and there's a reason why I love